It's true, Shawn.
What are you talking about? What's true?
All of it. You know all of it. You know it.
So where can I find this truth it?
On the Pod Bros Network, because this is a Pod Bros exclusive.
Did you just want to act like Han Solo again?
You know, doing a promotional spot isn't like dusting crops, boy. What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are speaking the language of love, Shawn.
Yeah. What?
No, it's the language of bromance, but I mean, we say bromance, but it's really the language of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what kind of love? Like bro love, right?
Yeah. Nobody believes us. No, but
they're like, it's legal now. You're gonna get married.
Stop
Just do it.
Knock it off.
Well, now we have to get divorced from our wives. There's a big legal battle. It'll be expensive, so we just do this podcast.
Mm-hmm. That's all we got.
Yep.
We're not like you we're not like you newfangled kids with your with your rights. No, Shawn, we're speaking the language of love because I want to talk to you. I want to tell you a couple stories, okay? But it's all going to center around two things. Okay. One is really bad, and one is really good.
Okay.
Okay? So it's a little kind of a push-pull is what I'm giving you today.
A little yin and a yang.
Yeah. So the bad, Shawn, we're going to talk about the Civil War.
Oh, that was a rough time. Rough
patch. Was. Captain America's punching people in the face. Yeah. Iron Man's all angry.
And Vision's all pissed off about something.
Yeah. No, not that Civil War. The other Civil War.
Ooh, that was even worse.
Yeah, it was. So we're going to talk about the Civil War, but the other thing we're going to talk about, Shawn, is prostitutes. Who doesn't love a prostitute?
It's working for the yourself, self-employment, making those dollar bills.
Dollar bills, y'all.
So before this podcast ends, I want us to find either a stripper, a prostitute, or a porn star, maybe even all three, and interview them. I would be interested to figure out the stories you could hear.
Yeah. I would agree with that. But now here's the thing. What kind of porn star would it be? Would it be like a super famous porn star? Because I'd want to interview just like an amateur porn star.
Well, I think, I wouldn't want like Jenna Jameson or any like the big ones.
Exactly.
I want somebody who's like maybe mildly known. Like there's a cult of people who are like, oh yeah, that's my favorite.
I'm always fascinated when because porn stars do AMAs on Reddit, and I throw questions on there all the time.
Like, did you get my package I sent you?
Are you gonna write me back? God,
here, watch my video I made for you.
I know it's a letter writing. It's a lost art. But yes, I agree. Interviewing a porn star would be fantastic. But right now we're going to talk about prostitutes. Okay. So we're going to start off with.
Wait, is this a Civil War of prostitutes? Like, is these prostitutes like they're
Oh my God, wouldn't that be amazing? Or what if it's prostitutes fighting in the Civil War?
Oh, or prostitutes fighting strippers? Like they're like. It's like an art where it's like, well, you're either a stripper or a prostitute. It's like, well, you can kind of be both. Like, no, you can't. Civil War.
Yeah, and the strippers are like, you go too far. And the prostitutes are like, you don't go far enough.
Your bitches are cock teases.
And all the men are like, I agree with the prostitutes. Civil War.
Bunch of dudes sitting with popcorn like, I'll watch this.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay for this.
Yeah. But it's not anything cool like lady topless fencing like we had earlier.
Yeah.
Like, if you remember a couple months ago, we talked about the ladies doing the topless fencing. That was good times.
That was good times.
Shawn, these prostitutes aren't fighting. They are not fighting in the Civil War. They are part of the Civil War. It's the role. There's many a forgotten tale in the Civil War, and I think one of those that needs to be told is the tale of
my dearest Candy. The trepidations of this war have been awful. But your mouth has got me through the cold nights when I'm away from my homestead. My wife, Maria, doesn't do half the things you do. She doesn't let me put it where her doo-doo comes out, but you do.
It almost makes me want to switch sides. Okay. So, it was to my slight disappointment. This is an article called on prostitution in the Civil War. It was to my slight disappointment that I found out the term hooker, one of many referring to prostitutes, is not actually a play on the name of Joseph Hooker. Okay?
It's not or is?
Joseph Hooker. It's not.
Oh, okay.
It is not. Joseph Hooker was an infamous and promiscuous Union general.
Ooh.
Let's backtrack. Let's talk about good old Joe Hooker here for a minute. So, Joe was born in Hadley, Massachusetts, and he was the grandson of a captain in the American Revolutionary War.
Okay, so it comes from a long line of freedom fighters, basically.
Right. He's kind of like Lieutenant.
I got teabagged just like old Grampy.
No, he's like Lieutenant Dan, where every one of his relatives fought and died in every single American war. Okay, so he was of entirely English ancestry, all of which had been in New England since the early 1600s.
Ooh.
So he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the 1st U.S. Artillery. This is in 1837.
So pretty high up.
Yeah.
Was it lieutenant then colonel then general?
Not super high up. He kind of middle of the road. He graduated 29th out of a class of 50 at the U.S. Military Academy.
So yeah, he's about 50%. He's that middle mark.
Yeah.
Not top of the class, not the dumbest of the bunch.
His initial assignment was in Florida in the second of the Seminole Wars, and he served in the Mexican-American War in staff positions in the campaigns of both Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott. He received promotions for his staff leadership and gallantry in 3 battles of Monterey, National Bridge, and Chapultepec. No.
Chipotle. Everybody fights Chipotle the next morning.
His army reputation as a ladies' man began in Mexico, where local girls referred to him as the handsome captain.
Ah, so he loved the ladies there.
He did.
So was he fighting in Mexico, or would have been kind of like the south? What is now like the southeast or southwest United States, like Texas?
No, I think he was in Mexico, but he's in Mexico, and the ladies love him, and he loved the ladies. Well, you gotta think, he spends all his time at the U.S. Military Academy. That's a sausage fest.
Yeah.
Like, he gets out, he's like, I'm all for this, rah, rah, go America, but I need
some touch.
Right? That's exactly what I was going to say.
It's like, have you seen these senoritas down here?
After the Mexican-American War, he served as an assistant of the Pacific Division, but resigned his commission in 1853. His military reputation had been damaged when he testified against his former commander, General Scott, for the court-martial for insubordination.
Ooh, what'd General Scott do?
I'm not sure. I didn't get that far. He settled in Sonoma County, California, as a farmer and land developer, but he was more devoted to gambling and liquor than to agriculture.
Have you ever watched like wheat grow? It's boring, but you look for that flop on the card table,
right? Well, plus, he just got done with a war.
Well, and he basically got discharged. Basically, had to quit because General Scott's like, if I ever see you again, Hooker, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you.
Oh yeah, fuck you, Hooker. I hate you.
I'm no longer General Scott. I'm
just
Colonel Scott.
I'm Farmer Hooker now. I'm going to California. And then he gets there and he's like, this is fucking boring. Let's play cards. His house still exists in the city of Sonoma. And when living there, he ran for election unsuccessfully to represent the region of in the California legislature. He was obviously unhappy and unsuccessful because in 1858, he wrote to John B. Floyd, who was the Secretary of War at the time, to request that his name be presented to President Buchanan as a candidate for lieutenant colonelcy, but nothing came of his request. And
so he's just sending letters. He's like, hey, I'm getting tired of watching this wheat growing. I'm losing my money gambling. Can you get me a job?
I've burned through my markers. Yeah, you guys got a gig? I mean, I'll take whatever. Lieutenant Colonel would be nice, but I mean, from 1859 to 1861, he held a commission as a colonel in the California militia. All right, Sean, but guess what happens? Guess what happens come 1861? Civil War.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
So
Lincoln's like, let's get rid of the slaves. And the South's like, no, we don't like your slaves. And Civil War.
State rights. And Lincoln's like, fuck your state rights.
Yeah, Civil War.
Boom, boom, boom.
At the start of the Civil War, he requested a commission, but his first application was rejected. He's like, look, I understand that half the country is fighting the other half of the country, but you're good. I think we're good on people.
Just stay in California. He's like, fuck. So he writes a letter to Douglas. Hey, you guys need a colonel? I'm looking for a job. Wait, you guys have slaves? That's awful.
That's terrible. Wait a minute. Oh, sorry. I wrote for the wrong side. My bad. Possibly because of his first application was rejected, possibly because of the lingering resentment harbored by Winfield Scott, who is now General-in-Chief of the Army.
Oh, so he didn't get discharged all the way.
Right.
So it's essentially like you testify against that mob boss. It's like they're going to jail for life, and it's like innocent. You're like, fuck.
Well, guess I'm moving to California. I'm gonna grow grapes.
The guy kept asking me what size shoes I wear. I don't understand why.
He had to borrow money to make the trip east from California. After he witnessed the Union Army defeat at the First Battle of Bull Run, he wrote a letter. So this dude is all about writing letters.
Yeah, he is.
He is sending out you know what he is? He's sitting at home. He's just sending out that resume like crazy.
He's got them all written out already. He just has to change the two and thank you, Mr. Lincoln. Thank you, Mr. Douglas. And then the Canada Prime Minister right now. Thank you, Mr. Canada Prime Minister.
God, I wish we had LinkedIn. This would make this so much easier.
Oh, monster.com. Why didn't you exist?
Right? I was good at shooting. Now I could play cards okay. Not really, but
yeah, I've lost all my money. I'm a good farmer, but my yield's kind of small. It's non-existent. I didn't realize you have to water it.
That's stupid.
I made the mistake. I thought the ox were for eating like cows, but they're actually supposed to be to plow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. They taste okay. Kind of tough meat, but...
A little bit. I'm a terrible farmer. So he wrote a letter to President Lincoln and complained of military mismanagement, promoted his own qualifications, and again requested a commission.
What do you want this time? Was he like, all right, he basically lowballed it too much. He's like, I want to be 4-star general.
No. Okay, so basically what he does is he writes a letter to Lincoln, and he's like, look, what you're doing right now is shit, and the people you got in charge are shit. You know what you need? Me. You need General Hooker. General Hooker's going to get shit done. So he was appointed in August of 1961 as a brigadier general of volunteers.
Oh, wow.
Of volunteers to rank from May 17th. He commanded a brigade and then a division around Washington, D.C. as part of an effort to organize and train the new Army of the Potomac under Major General George B. McClellan.
That seems pretty big.
Right?
That's the people that are protecting D.C.
Yeah, exactly, right? So here's the letter. I'm going to read you some of the letter that... Because Lincoln,
dearest Lincoln.
No, Lincoln wrote back. So this is the letter that he wrote back. He said, Major General Hooker, I have placed you at the head of the Army of the Potomac. Of course, I have done this upon what appeared to me to be sufficient reasons, and yet I think it best for you to know that there are some things in regard to which, quote, I am not quite satisfied with you. I believe you to be a brave and skillful soldier, which of course I like. I also believe you do not mix politics with your profession, in which you are right. You have confidence in yourself, which is valuable, if not an indispensable quality. You are ambitious, which, within reasonable bounds, does good rather than harm. But I think during General Burnside's command of the army, you have taken counsel of your ambition and thwarted him as much as you could, in which you did a great wrong to the country and to a most meritorious and honorable brother officer.
Damn.
I have heard, in such way as to believe it, of your recently saying that both the army and the government needed a dictator. Of course, it is not for this, but in spite of it, that I have given you command.
Hashtag you suck, bitch.
So you're a good soldier, but you're kind of a shitty person.
Yeah, that's basically what he's saying. He's like, you're going around stabbing the people in the back. Like, you're awful for this country, essentially. But that's kind of surprising that they have somebody like commanding something near D.C., though. Like, that seems to me like, hey, I want you to, manage the California militia way up north where they have no teeth.
Why don't you keep an eye on that Canadian border in case they decide to get a little frisky. Yeah, basically he's like, so look, I'm promoting you, but it's just because you're a good soldier. Like, as a human being, you're terrible. You are the worst. So, let's see. So Lincoln appointed Hooker to command of the Army of the Potomac on January 26th of 1863. Some members of the army saw this move as inevitable, given Hooker's reputation for aggressive fighting, something sorely lacking his predecessors. During the, quote, Mud March, Hooker was quoted by a New York Times Army correspondent as saying that nothing would go right until we had a dictator, and the sooner the better. And that's what prompted Lincoln to write this letter.
Okay, so Hooker was saying, like, we don't need a president. We need a dictator, somebody that's going to, take his enemies or take those who speak against him and cut their heads off.
Yeah. So trying to see if I can get to let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah, so essentially he finally got some like management. Basically, he got moved up into upper management. He's still talking shit about the bosses. He's talking shit about his boss's bosses. And now what's he going to do? Like, you got to be careful. You don't want the morale of your people to get on you, because there's nothing worse than that boss who bitches about like upper management to like his people that report to him, right? So how's he keeping the morale going and not getting them all pissed off?
Exactly. So Hooker quickly gained a reputation as an aggressive leader who cared for his men, which didn't go unnoticed by Union leaders. Hooker went on to lead troops in the Battle of Antietam, where he hurt his foot, and during his absence from the battlefield, General Burnside, who took over after McClellan, made a series of tactical errors. Despite Hooker boosting morale, increasing health care for his troops, and improving food supplies, he suffered a loss to Confederates at the Battle of Charlottesville. The defeat got Hooker transferred westward, where he enjoyed a victory leading troops in the Battle of Lookout Mountain. But okay, so there is a popular legend that the reason why you get the whole Hooker thing for General Hooker is because of parties and lack of military discipline at his headquarters near the Murder Bay district of Washington, D.C. Some versions of the legend claim that a band of prostitutes followed his division, were derisively referred to as General Hooker's Army or Hooker's Brigade.
So he had a bunch of prostitutes following him around. That's how he kept the morale of his men up.
Yeah. I don't know how that would.
For the hookers.
I don't know how that would improve healthcare, but the reason that they say that, or the where the myth is debunked on the whole, like, where do hookers come from? It's because it was used in print the term hooker was used in print as early as 1845, years before Hooker was a public figure, and derived from the concentration of prostitutes around the shipyards and ferry terminal of Corlear's Hook, which is in Manhattan.
Oh, okay. So it was already a term, and it just kind of fit well with him.
Yeah.
Because of what his last name was.
Yeah, and apparently he had a bunch of prostitutes following him around.
They'd go to battle, they'd finish battle, and they'd go back to camp, and 2 ladies per tent. It's like, but there's 6 guys to a tent.
Oh. Damn it. Meanwhile, General's like, I got 4. I love the army. This is why he left and wanted to come back. He's like, I'm in fucking California playing cards and not watering my crops. Like, I just want to shoot things and sleep with prostitutes.
Yeah, well, yeah, because when he was in Mexico and all that, that's apparently what he was doing. Like, he knew what war was. It was fighting and fucking.
Yeah. The prevalence of the hooker legend may have been at least partly responsible for the popularity of the term. There is some evidence that an area in Washington, D.C., known for prostitution during the Civil War, was referred to as Hooker's Division. The name was shortened to the Division when he spent some time there after the first Bull Run guarding D.C. from incursion.
It sounds like a Showtime, like, Skinamax movie, The Division, with John Hooker.
You know, like, there's some pictures of him. He doesn't look terrible. Doesn't look too bad. So you got this general walking around with a bunch of hookers, and he's hanging out, and then he has not a good time. It seems like people are like, yeah, he's a good soldier, but he's kind of a shitty person. He plays cards,
but his men are like, we love him. He's the best boss ever.
Can we have 2 of these?
He gives us Taco Tuesday. What's that mean? I
don't know. He picked it up during the Mexican-American War. I couldn't you see him like sitting there. He's like, you guys do this every Tuesday? I'm bringing this back home with me. Every single Tuesday. Huh.
You know what? We're going to do this on Wednesdays too. Why not? Taco Tuesdays every Wednesday.
I love tacos.
I do love tacos.
Yeah, everybody loves tacos. So that's General Hooker. That's his life. That's the stuff he did. So during the Civil War era, going back to prostitution in the Civil War era, everybody thought that it was kind of like a Victorian era. Like, if you think of, I think that if you try and imagine like that time, I think most people think of.
You think it's very proper. You know, it's like we said before, it's like, my dearest Samantha.
Right, like Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Or like Glory. Like, you wouldn't see Matthew Broderick, like, taking them 2 at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know if I could really see him doing that now, just Matthew Broderick in general. He seems like such a gentleman.
I know, right? Well, he married Horseface. What's her name?
Oh, from Sex and the City?
Yes.
What the hell is her name?
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a jerk, Richard.
Yeah, I am not. Look, you look and you tell me. Samantha.
My dearest Sarah.
How many friends do you have? So prostitution and sex work was held in contempt by the majority of Victorian society. William Queensberry Claytor on Virginia penned in his diary in 1852 that, quote, impudent prostitutes were often seen in Alexandria at night, and Union officer Josiah Marshall Faville wrote that in the same city in 1862, houses were, quote, thronged with sex workers.
Yeah, but that's like their public journal that their wives would see. Their private journal probably says a lot more. Because I always imagine, like, and I don't know, maybe it is just as much as it is today, but like I remember hearing stories of Babe Ruth in St. Louis, and he would always, like, there were specific districts in St. Louis where the houses were brothels. And it was like well known, like, to everybody. Like, I don't think of that today. Like, I don't know where there's any brothels in St. Louis, or, I mean, I'm sure there are, but it doesn't seem like that's something that everybody knows about.
Yeah, especially you would think with like the advent of, mass communication and the internet, it would be, you would think it'd be easier.
I would think so.
Because back then, you'd have to go down there, you'd have to sit in a bar, you'd have to wait for somebody.
Yep. You have to ask a guy who would ask a guy.
Yeah, be like, are you a cop?
And if you don't ask the right questions, you end up as like a bunch of dudes with their shirts off, and you're like, well, I don't want to offend them, so I got to go with it.
Not this kind of house. Wrong house. There was blue curtains. It was supposed to be pink curtains.
That's how I met Todd.
Now we raise sheep. As discouraged and taboo as the practice was, however, it continued to expand and thrive during the Civil War era. Sexually transmitted diseases indicate the prevalence of prostitution during the war itself. An estimated 8.2% of federal soldiers were diagnosed with either syphilis or gonorrhea throughout the war.
Was it treatable back then? Did they have
penicillin, I don't think was invented until the 20s, the 1920s. I could totally be wrong on that.
Because I thought I've heard stories about like basically if one of those like you get stopped up there.
Yeah.
And either they would shove like a hot spigot up it, or they would have to like smash it with a hammer to break it up. Or maybe that's just what they told me in sex ed class to scare me.
It worked. You just told me, and that scared me.
I haven't had sex with my wife ever, Richard. I'm like, no, that's how you get diseases.
No! It starts with you, and then it's the hammer. I don't want the hammer.
Mom, Tiffany's trying to have sex with me again. You just stick to your morals, Pookie Bear.
You don't want the hammer, do you, Pookie Bear? No, I don't, Mom. I know better. You raised me right.
If only my wife would be so happy.
8.2% of federal soldiers were diagnosed with either syphilis or gonorrhea throughout the war, and far more likely went undiagnosed.
No, honey, it's a rash, I swear.
It's called war rash.
Yeah, it's war rash, babe. It's from sleeping in dirty trenches named Candy.
It's because I lay down and the gun is between my legs, because that's how I sleep, because you got to always be at the ready, so then you get war rash.
My brother said he had the same rash. That's so interesting. Yeah, we both got it at the Battle of Heather.
He didn't go to war. He only has one leg. Well, that's because he was at the special battle for the handicapped.
We wanted to be inclusive, so we had a separate battle off to the side.
Yeah, they had ramps, and so that way everybody could get on the field, because we care. And then you come along with with your hey, why do I have to take a hammer to your penis?
Babe, this is man stuff. You wouldn't understand. Is that hot spigot ready? Yeah, we gotta shove it up there because I haven't peed in a month.
Oh,
America.
These venereal diseases were a tremendous setback for the Army, as treatment could put troops out of combat for long periods of time. Well, yeah, because if somebody takes a hammer to my dick, my next thought isn't, all right, let me grab a gun and head out to the field so I can get shot.
I don't know. If you're pissed off enough, it's like, hey, you can't have sex for 6 months and your dick's all beat up. It's like, I gotta fucking kill somebody.
Officers had to ensure discipline and order to keep their men from frequenting brothels.
Guys, you don't want the hammer, do you? Stop having sex with prostitutes.
No more war rash.
That's what we've wrote to our wives.
You
all know what it means.
We're all agreed we're calling it war rash. But you know that I know that you know what it is. Stop going to the houses.
All right, now who needs to go to the nightly hammer rounds? Yeah, I got to too. Goddamn Candy. That magical mouth.
I'll tell you what, if I was a doctor, like during the Civil War era, like I'd be wearing a helmet, Because like you're taking a hammer to a dude's dick, like the first thing he's doing is taking a swing at the side of your head.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm wearing like, and not even like, I mean, they didn't have like, obviously they didn't have like football helmets. So I would just wear like a knight's helmet with a plume out the top. So that's what you'd see.
Thing. You'd have the visor pulled up and be like, all right, Greg, so you're going to feel a little pinch.
Bite this.
But you're going to be able to pee after this. Will we be able to have hooked up to this? Not anytime soon, Greg.
No.
All right, here we go. Clink. 1, 2. Pop, 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 pop. You didn't say 3.
Punch. Now my dick and my hand hurt. You're a terrible doctor.
What am I supposed to tell my wife and my 12 kids?
War rash.
War rash.
Just call it war rash.
Severe case of war rash.
What about my hand? That's from I don't know. You slept on it funny. So such problems, like soldiers going to frequenting brothels, such problems proved especially prevalent in Union occupied southern cities like Nashville and New Orleans. So the Union shows up, they take over the town, and then obviously they got to hang out, make sure everything's on the up and up, make sure they're maintaining order over their now occupied city. And so, dudes get bored.
Yeah. It's like, all right, well, we got this under control. It's under martial law.
Yeah, we got the night off. I'm cruising for war rash.
I hear New Orleans has got some really good poor boys. And they got great places to get war rash. I've just been cured of my war rash. I could use another helping.
That's what you tell your wife. It's war rash. How do you get war rash? Well, I was in Nashville and I was eating ribs and I got barbecue sauce on my fingers and then I had an itch.
And you get it from ribs and toilets, babes. It's common knowledge.
Ribs and crawfish. That's what it's from.
You get home, your wife's like,
I think I have an allergy.
When you get home, your wife's like, oh, well, I got war rash too. Wait a second. Where's that Bob at, that son of a bitch?
You can't get war rash. It doesn't work on girls.
It only works on Prost. I'm going to go to the
barn. Boss says we got to go play cards. Your boss's name is Hooker. Well, okay. One effort taken by the Union to eradicate this fraternization was to ship the prostitutes to other states. So that's the plan. The plan is we can't stop our guys from going in there, so we just got to ship them all off, so that way there's no place to go.
Here's $100 and a train ticket. Get on your way, ladies.
Yeah, diminish the supply, and then don't worry about the demand.
And then they just had a mass desertion.
This was attempted in Nashville, where women were put on trains and sped off to surrounding cities. However, many of them were close enough to find their way back.
It's like what's the old saying? If you love something so much, let it go, and if it loves you, it'll come back.
Right. And Nashville loved prostitutes, so they came back.
Oh man, that song "Fancy" makes so much more sense now.
However, the army decided the solution was, after that, more drastic measures were sought, and the army decided the solution was to transport the women to different states by boat.
Okay, so up the rivers and things like that.
Right. Originally the plan was, let's get them on a train, get on a horse, we don't care, just get out, just leave. And so they'd leave for a few days. They probably gave them $5, and they're like, get on this horse and go. So then they leave and spend the $5 and then come back.
So it'd be like a good 2 nights worth of work. So they'd leave for a couple nights and come back.
Right.
After their war rash cleared up.
Everybody's got the war rash again.
What's happening here?
Oh,
maybe you can get it from your gun.
Have we ever checked that out? I mean, I know we made it up to tell our wives, but is there something to this? The whores are back.
All right, well, let's go see them first just to make sure.
Yep. They're number one, they're all back, and number two, I need the hammer. So the army decided the solution was to transport the women to different states by boat. So they're putting them on a boat and sending them to like a whole different state.
So what would a boat do different than a train? I mean, train has just as much reach.
Yeah, but I think it would be harder to get to. It would be harder for them to find passage back on a boat.
I guess, yeah. If you take them to a boat and lead them all the way upriver and drop them off and
then just take off, then you got to find some place that also has a boat.
Yeah. You're like, this is Minnesota.
Like you put them on a train, they get off at the train station, they could just get right back on the train.
That's true. Yeah. And they're not going to swim in water because I think prostitutes are allergic to water. I read that somewhere in a book.
Did you?
Yeah, I think if you figure out if a woman's a prostitute
and silver,
if you throw a woman in water and she sinks, or if you put a log and she jumps in and she floats, then she's a prostitute. And then what's the other thing?
If you sleep with them and then you have to take a hammer to your penis, then they're probably a prostitute.
That's it. Yeah.
So they come up with this boat plan and they call upon Captain John Newcomb to transport 100 prostitutes to Kentucky.
He's like, I'll do it.
He does. He's like, I'm on it. I got this. So he gets a steamboat. You ready for the name of the steamboat, Sean? I'm going to spell it for you. You ready? Here's the name of the steamboat. It's the IDAHOE. Sean,
it's
the name
John
of this boat
Newcombs.
is the Idaho.
Idaho them all the way back to Kentucky.
Who the ho? Idaho. Idaho on the boat.
Oh, this is like a great, like this is like the Hustler's first, cruise ship.
Yeah, it is. It's like a party boat.
Yeah. He's like, who wants to come with me? Who wants to come aboard the Idaho? I do.
I think you need a first mate, Captain. I think you need a second mate. I think you need a third mate. We don't want to be here anymore. Can we get on the boat? So, Sean, there is a boat now called the Idaho that has 100 prostitutes on it.
That seems kind of low. I would think there'd be more prostitutes in the area than 100.
Well, I think this is probably like the first of many.
Experimental trip.
Yeah.
They checked all the ones that had war rash and put them on the Idaho. All right, girl, you've had a good run, but it's time to put you out to pasture in Pastures, Kentucky.
The Kentucky pasture. We'll do it with horses in 100 years.
But first we want to start with whores.
The captain protested, not willing to tarnish the reputation of his ship. He called the ship the Idaho. Idaho, Idaho. He called
Idaho's.
Will not sully the reputation of the Idaho.
There's been a lot of famous people on this boat.
Captain protested, not willing to tarnish the reputation of his ship, which he claimed would becoming known as a quote floating whorehouse.
Well, you know who actually was like, no, you're not doing that. That was his wife. He's like, oh, babe, I've got a great deal. It's going to help us get through the next 2 winters.
Army showed up. They said, I got to do it. King and country. I mean, not king and country, but, I'm just trying to do my duty as an American, honey.
Yep. She's like, well, what are you going to be taking? Injured soldiers or, yeah, kind of. It's going to be 100. 100 what? 100. Did you say 100 captains?
Close. Captains of industry, they are.
Yeah, they're the captains of the night. John, are you going to have whores on your boat again?
It's a floating whorehouse. I cleared them all out the first time. Yeah, but it's not my fault. The Army told me to. Army said I had to.
And don't give me that bullshit about war rash, because you're not even fighting.
I knew it. As soon as you named that ship the Idaho, I knew that something like this was going to happen. Honey, it's got nothing to do with that.
Your sister's going to be on that boat. You get back here, you son of a bitch.
He could not stand up to the Army, and his trip went underway. So he's like, babe, I got to do it. Army says I got to. You know, what are you going to do? I'll be back in a few months. Bye.
Chugga, Idaho.
So his trip was underway, but unfortunately for Newcomb, no city in Kentucky or any other state would accept his cargo.
Because as they're pulling up the port, it's like Girls Gone Wild. Going,
and all the dudes are like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever happened.
Park here. And their wives slowly walk up with a hammer.
Hey, honey, what's on that boat? Oh my God.
Keep moving, ladies. Bye.
Hey, do you know which way it is to Kentucky? Yeah, it's back the way you came.
Bye, ladies.
Oh.
Guess I'll just stick to not having sex with my wife.
This civil war is tearing this country apart.
You're tearing us apart, Lincoln.
Shit. He was so no city in Kentucky or any other state would accept his cargo, and he was forced to circle back around to Nashville.
Yeah, he comes back 2 months later, and all those troops are like, "Yay! My prayers have been answered."
I thought you were gone, and then you came back.
Candy, I love you.
Thank you, Captain Newcomb. The result.
He comes off the boat scratching. He's like, "Hey, anybody got one of those hammers?" It's been a long journey.
I got sea rash from barnacles.
Yeah, I had to clean the underside of the boat and scratched myself.
The result was a ruined ship and a city that had not rid itself of its prostitutes. So 2 months. How long was it gone? Let's see. Yeah, no. So he was forced to circle back, and so now we're right back where we started. So we send him off on a train, and they come back. We put him on a boat and send him off. Nobody's gonna take him. Boat comes back. Captain Newcomb's like, "Told you,
I did all I could.
I tried.
I've tried really, really hard.
Can we have a law? No wives allowed at the harbor."
I'm telling you, that's what screwed it up. Every harbor, they showed up with shotguns. I saw a lot of sad men's faces. I tell you that.
So, Shawn. So at this point, what's going to happen? I think, I think we've pretty much. I think you pretty much know what's going to happen. Prostitutes win.
Yeah. So what? They end up going back to Nashville and just setting back up shop?
Yeah, they all go back to Nashville. So the documentation of prostitutes and legalization of their work became an effective, though not necessarily morally sound, solution.
So they legalized it in Nashville?
They legalized it.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
The system was implemented in Nashville in August of 1863, when public women were required to report to a newly transformed clinic and be tested and licensed.
So kind of like the Vegas before Vegas.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's not Vegas. It's Nevada.
Right.
Because it's by population, like county population or something like that, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Thus, prostitution essentially became legal and much safer, as sex workers were required to be tested every 2 weeks. And if they failed the medical exam, they were sent to the hospital until they were deemed, quote, cured.
So they got to go and get the hammer.
Yeah, then they got the lady hammer. That's why I named my dick. Yeah, lady hammer.
You name it, like it's actually in sometimes you call it like Thor's hammer.
Curing the prostitutes. Wow, you cured. After which quote, cured, they could return to work. Unlicensed prostitutes caught working were incarcerated.
Oh, so they went to jail. So yeah, it doesn't seem like there's any bad, like, yeah, you sign up, you get your hooker license, and you do your job.
Right?
You serve your country.
It works out for everybody. In the roughly 2 years that this system was used in Nashville, nearly 400 licenses were issued, and the city and Union Army alike became considerably healthier.
I could see it, yeah.
The moral question was naturally raised, to which the Army could only conclude that the safety and health of its soldiers transcended ethical values. So they're like, look, we get it. Oh, sex is bad, but end of the day, it's this or the hammer.
That's a good point.
You can have ethics and the hammer, or you can have this.
Did it say like how long the Nashville hooker like legalization was in place? Like when did it get overturned?
I'm not sure. I can look that up though.
Because I just always assumed it was always illegal in the States.
No, I think it's been like kind of cropped up here and there. My guess is probably like in the early 1900s. It was probably like, oh, I mean, yeah, we did that, but let's
like Prohibition time frame, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
It's like oh man, could you imagine the dude running on that platform?
Yeah,
getting rid of booze and prostitutes, and you're standing there next to your wife, like, oh, that sounds like a horrible idea. She's like, oh, does it, Greg? Oh, I guess I know who I'm casting my vote for.
Damn it! No
more war rash for me. We're in peacetime, Greg. God damn it!
Looks like we're going back to the hammer. Yeah, that's a good point. So they were probably like, we need another civil war.
We'll fight a war across the ocean.
Yeah. Now if you want to, you gotta go all the way to France for prostitutes now.
There's this guy in Germany who's a real douchebag. Let's go over there and fight.
Yeah. I heard the French ladies do all sorts of stuff.
I hear they kiss you with their mouth, but not on your mouth. Spoiler alert, they kiss you on your penis.
With their penis. Wait, what?
Just go with it, Bob.
My name isn't Lynette, it's Serge. So finding Nashville prostitutes was easy. He hit upon, so this is the second week of July when what's this guy's name? Where they met John Newcomb, and he was the owner of a brand new steamboat recently christened the Idaho. That's so bad. He just got this boat.
So he just gets it, and then he's got to take the prostitutes on the trip.
Yeah. It's like his maiden voyage. And no, it's on the boat, not maidens. Newcomb and his crew of 3 were given rations enough to last the passengers to Louisville, but otherwise they were on their own.
Oh, shit. So even when they left and like traveled, they had to go back with not enough rations?
Yeah, pretty much. The local press delighted in the story, encouraging readers to, quote, bid goodbye to those frail sisters once and for all. So Shawn, he had 98 women and 6 children on his ship. So he went to Louisville, where he was turned away, and then desperate to get the remaining 98 women and 6 children off his ship, he returned the Idaho to Louisville, where it was once again turned away, and by early August, the Cincinnati Gazette was proven correct. The ship returned to Nashville, leaving Spaulding, who I think is the guy that's trying to get rid of these women, exactly where he started, plus with a hefty bill from Newcomb. So Newcomb bills him when he gets back. He's like, look, I went up to Louisville and with a boat full of whores, so pay me.
I don't blame him. It's like if you're Ubering that, you're going to charge. If like you tell Uber, like, hey, I want to go to Louisville, and you get there and Louisville's like, hey, we don't want you. He's got to drive you back. He's charging.
Yeah. Demanding compensation for damages to his ship, he insisted someone from the Army perform an inspection. And on August 8th, a staffer reporting found that the ship's stateroom had been, quote, badly damaged and the mattresses badly soiled, and recommended Newcomb be paid $1,000 in damages plus $4,300 to cover the food and medicine peculiar to the diseased women in this class.
Damn. So is this like a luxury cruise ship kind of thing? Like a luxury steamboat?
It's like, it's a steamboat. So I'm sure it's got like, rooms, and it's like that boat on Maverick. Remember the movie Maverick? Mel Gibson? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So when the women came home, they came home to a Nashville in which prostitution was legal. Spalding decided that it would be easier to keep Union soldiers healthy if prostitutes were licensed and subjected to regular doctor's appointments. The end of this article just talks about like, oh, maybe we should try this.
Oh, like in today's age?
Yeah. The whole like, hey, it reduces the risk of sexually transmitted infection and things like that. So it's either, now we have penicillin. We don't have the hammer. We don't have to fear the hammer anymore. Thank goodness. Fucking hammer.
So what happened to Hooker and all this? So Hooker was the guy that kind of started this out.
Hooker
was he the one driving for the legalization?
No. Well, this is totally the prostitute stuff with the Idaho and stuff like that. That was all in Nashville.
Oh, okay.
Hooker's in DC, like whoring it up and playing cards or whatever.
So he like says Hooker's not registered, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He can handle the hammer. That's what I'm saying.
He's had so much war rash in his day that he's immune. And he's not married, so it doesn't matter.
No, he led some battles, and then there was a battle in Chancellorsville that didn't go so well for him. He survived, but he had to retreat, and then he got shipped off to
Nashville.
Yeah, he got shipped off to kind of like out of the way until the war was over. After the war, Hooker led President Abraham Lincoln's Springfield funeral procession on May 4th of 1865.
Oh, wow.
He served in the command of the Department of the East and the Department of the Lakes following the war. His postbellum life was marred by poor health, and he was partially paralyzed by a stroke. He was mustered out of the volunteer service on September 1st, 1866, and retired from the U.S. Army on October of 1868 with the regular Army rank of Major General. He died in 1879 on Halloween while on a visit to Garden City, New York.
Yeah, so he lived another 10 to 12 years.
Right? And now everybody thinks, exactly, and everybody thinks that, that's where Hooker came from. Which isn't true, but everybody's like, oh, Hooker, like hookers. Ha 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 ha.
Like Major General Hooker. Mr. TJ Hooker.
That's where Richard, it's from. It's William Shatner.
Well, Richard, in this amazing trip down memory lane for American history, what are your Richard's closing thoughts?
If you're gonna be a doctor with a hammer, wear a helmet. That's one. Also,
war rash is still being spread to this day.
Yeah,
that's what you can tell your wife.
Yeah, war rash is a thing, and it should be a problem that we should all investigate thoroughly.
All right, well, let me come around and get all of our hammers gathered together and do a little bit of housekeeping. Go to our website, we're languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter, we're at languageofbro. Email us at eatthebeaver@languageofbromance.com. Check out the LOB Army Intelligence Reports, like us on Facebook, and go out and recruit somebody for the LOB Army by getting someone you know to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify.
And when you do all that, if you got the time, go ahead and leave us a rating and a review so that way we can read them and figure out how horrible we are at this.
And remember, Language of Bromance is part of the Pod Bros Network. It's basically the brothel of podcasts on the internet.
The hookers brigade of podcasters on the internet.
And if you want to throw a little money in our tip jar, kind of like, it's like, here's your money, you hookers. Go to our Patreon accounts, www.patreon.com/language of bromance.
And if you give it to us, we promise you won't get the hammer.
You might get War Rash, though. All right. Well, is there anything before I close her out?
No.
All right. Well, that's all the bromance we have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And I say, as we are on the Idaho, we eat the beaver.
That's how you get War Rash in your mouth.